Let's compare the NYXI Wizard with the DOYOKY GameCube controller. So yes, there's now two actual GameCube Joy-Con style controllers for the Nintendo Switch. I've covered both of them on the channel, so you can go and see my NYXI Wizard video here on the channel, and you can also go and check out my DOYOKY GameCube controller video on the channel. But today we're going to be comparing them, so here they are. These are the two controllers, and of course this one is the more new one. The NYXI Wizard came out at the beginning of the year, but they are quite different from each other, even though they basically do the same thing. So first off is just design. Like, look at the difference between these two controllers just here. You can see that the NYXI Wizard, well, they've got the sort of GameCube style purple thing in the middle, you know, the attachment, whereas the DOYOKY one is just black. But there is a big difference, because this one, yes, it's got an actual charging port on the centerpiece, whereas the Wizard does not. And also, look at the size difference when you're top down. Like, this one is a freaking monster, and it weighs a ton as well, whereas this one, the DOYOKY, is a lot thinner and lighter. And if we just do the same thing but from the underneath, right, you can see just how fat the Wizard is. Like, that is just a chonky boy, whereas this one is a lot slimmer. And also, I just want to say straight up, that makes a huge difference when you've got it attached to the Switch. So look at the size of that thing. This is the Wizard, right? And look at the girth on that, right? Whereas if I take the same one off on this side, check this out. It's so much thinner. Like, it's absolutely tiny in comparison, and that means it actually sits flush with the Switch, which I'll test out a bit later when we attach it to the Switch. So the specs of these are pretty much the same. Almost. There are some differences. So they both have wireless functionality, obviously, so you can actually play them as a controller like this. You can use them individually as separate Joy-Cons on both of them, and you can both use them attached to the Nintendo Switch. So they're wireless, they both have 6-axis gyro, they both have turbo, they both have macro to an extent, they both have adjustable vibration as well, but the main difference really is the D-pad, the back sort of triggers here, and also the joysticks. So the Wizard actually has clicky triggers, you know, like a mechanical switch, just like a mouse, whereas the DOYOKY has the more mushy, traditional membrane style buttons, right? So both of these on the top of the Wizard are actually clicky. Now the other thing is this has lights in it, whereas that one doesn't, and I kind of prefer it without the lights, but there we go. Moving on to the D-pad. The D-pad on this one is clicky, so let me show you, see if you can hear it. Right, that's the D-pad on that one, so it kind of clicks as you roll it around. Okay, this one, it's a more traditional D-pad. You're not even going to hear anything because there's no click, there's nothing, it just rolls around, right? It is slightly mushy, but it doesn't stick, and I actually prefer it over this one because I really don't like the D-pad on this one. There's not much movement, it just clicks around. I don't like it. I actually prefer this one, and it's got a larger concave in it than the Wizard. The Wizard's quite flat. This one has got more of a concave. But the biggest thing, which is a deal breaker to some, is that this one has ALPS joysticks, and this one has Hall effect sensing joysticks. So there's a huge difference there. So if you don't know about Hall effect sensing joysticks, essentially there is no contact. What that means is that it's using a magnetic field to input, right? So all of the parts are never touching, whereas on this one, it's a more traditional joystick. It actually uses friction to input. Now, the bad thing is over time, potentially you could get drift from a non-Hall effect sensing joystick module, right? So this one could potentially get drift. I'm not saying it will. There's controllers that last for years and years and years without ever getting drift, but it could happen. Whereas with this one, you won't get drift. Now, using them as well, just straight away, this one is a lot stiffer than this one. These feel a lot more like free than this one. Now, the other difference is with Hall effect sensing joysticks, they supposedly have a faster way of inputting with that magnetic field, right? So you get quicker sort of response times with less dead zone. So I have noticed there is very slightly less dead zone on this one than this one, because this does have a minor dead zone, but this one, you know, doesn't effectively. So that is the difference there in terms of the sticks. But there's more to it with the joysticks. There's quite a lot to these joysticks, right? So hear me out. With the Wizard, you can see we've got an octagonal gate, right? In my other video, I kept saying hexagonal. That's wrong. Hex is 6, octagonal is 8. So we've got an octagonal gate around there, just like the original GameCube, right? But say you didn't want that. Say you wanted a normal circular gate. Well, on this one, you can actually take these off and replace it. So it comes with spares in the box that lets you use a circular gate instead. But the thing is it doesn't come with any other sticks than these, right? The caps. So what I did in a separate video, which I show you how to do, I actually got some original GameCube style ones, and I basically milled them out so that you can use the original C stick and the original joystick, because they are different. You can see that these are different. So if you wanted a more authentic feel, you'd have to use my hack in a separate video to do that. But the only thing is it's a bit of a pain to get them off, but there we go. So with this one, you pop this one on to replace the gate, right? So you pop it on, then you put the gate over it. You have to align it central, push down, and then you turn it, and now that gate is locked, right? So there is customization options here for an octagonal gate or a circular gate. However, on this one, we don't. It is absolutely set to an octagonal gate, just like the original GameCube controller. And just like the original, we have a flat, lower sort of level C stick just here and a raised left stick. So you can see that this has got that bump and this one is flat. Whereas on this one is raised because of that changeable gate, and this one is also raised because of the changeable gate. So this one, you cannot change the gate. It is way more traditional style, but you can change the caps, and they give you a bunch of caps. So you've got extended ones. So if you wanted a lengthened like height, you've got those extended caps, or you've got the short ones, or you've got the C-stick style. But the C-stick style, I've just dropped that, oh well. But the C-stick style is a lot smaller than the traditional GameCube one. So you can see that's quite a large nub, and that one's quite a thin nub. But I would say, actually in use, I quite like it. There's nothing wrong with that. I actually probably prefer it. It feels like I've got more range of motion because the stick's thinner, meaning I can move it further than when it's fat, and it's got less motion essentially, right? So I actually quite like that. But you can take these off and just pull them off, and then you can change these for whatever you want. So there's the extended one, look. So you can see the height difference there. So you can see like how much difference there is. So if you wanted an extended height, you can do that with both of them if you really wanted. So if you wanted a more traditional controller feel, you can do that, and look how like large they are. Or if you're crazy like me, you could actually really enjoy going dual C-stick. So you can actually change both of these to being a C-stick on both sides, and it actually feels great. Like, I didn't think I would like it, but I low-key love it. Like, it actually feels great. I don't know why controllers don't use this little nub. It's probably because over time you'll probably slip off it, right? But I actually quite like it. But anyway, so you can take that off. You can do this, so you don't need to do my hack where you have to like hack these original ones to get them in that one. This one comes with all the options, but the thing is, you'll never get a circular gate because it is, you know, molded in with that hexagonal gate just there. So that is something to take note. Now let's take a look at the face buttons, and I'll do a sound test for you. So this is the Wizard, right? And honestly, they're quite mushy, these buttons. They are really quite mushy. Whereas this one, I much prefer it. They're a lot nicer. They're still a little bit mushy on the Y and the X, but nowhere near the mush that you get off of the Wizard. So let me just do a sound test for you. This is the NYXI Wizard. That's just the face buttons, right? This is the DOYOKY. And you're probably hearing this sounds cleaner because there's less mush and I much prefer the feel of the face buttons on this one. Specifically, the A feels so nice in comparison to that. This is horrible and mushy and kind of, you can feel it rolling around, whereas that does not roll around at all. So let me show you a bit better, right? Push down, you can see it like moving and wobbling around, right? There's wiggle room there, and it just, you can kind of feel the mush. I can't explain it any better than that. And this one, nice, right? There's hardly any movement there, and it's just a lot nicer. I much prefer the face buttons on this one. Now, neither of them have analog triggers like the original GameCube, so you know, you don't have this analog input, but of course there's basically no Switch games that support it, so you know, sad times, right? But if you are planning to use these on the computer to use emulation, you're not going to be able to use your analog triggers, so that's kind of sad. Now, both of these have turbo, so you can assign turbo to basically anything on the right hand side or anything on the left hand side, and the same with this one just here. This one I do have set up on the Switch right now, so I might as well just show you that really quickly, right? So yes, they both have Wake from Sleep, so I'm currently in the middle of Metroid Prime Remastered just here, and this, obviously you're seeing now what this is like to use as an actual controller. But of course I will come back to that in a second, because we'll go over the feel again later, but I'm showing you the turbo, right? So with turbo, what you can do is assign turbo to like A. You can press it down and it will just spam turbo for you, or you can assign it again, and there you go. It will just keep going until you turn it off, you know, until you pause it, or you can turn it off by unassigning it or pressing and holding that for like 5 seconds and it will turn it off. It's basically the same with this one, but there is a difference with the macro paddles. So the macro paddles, yeah, they both have macro paddles, and let's just have a quick sound test. That's the Wizard. This is the DOYOKY. So you can hear the difference, right? And again, I would still say I prefer the DOYOKY. I'm sorry, like I didn't think it was going to go this way. I thought I was going to prefer the NYXI Wizard, but so far I think I'm actually preferring the DOYOKY. But anyway, right, so we've both got the macro on the back. Now with this one, as I've shown you in the dedicated video, unfortunately it doesn't do a true button swap. Yes, you can assign macro with the Wizard, so you can do multiple button presses. So you can assign A, B, X, Y to one back paddle, you press it and it will do that macro for you. But if you assign one button to that trigger, it will just do a macro version of that button press. It won't do a true button swap, right? So what I mean by that, and I can show you on this, because this doesn't have macro, it's just got button reassign, and I prefer that myself, meaning if I press M and A, now the back paddle is my shoot, right? So if that was a macro, it would only assign the amount of time I press that button for, and that is it. So if you had to press and hold, tough luck, it ain't gonna work. Whereas on this one, it will. So I can show you that with one single press is a shoot, yeah? Press and hold, it's still acting like the A. So if I press and hold that, yep. And if I press and hold with A, I can charge up, right? And let go. If I press and hold with the back paddle, oh look, it's actually functioning as A, not as a macro press. So for me, the clear winner for how I want to play is the DOYOKY in terms of those back paddles, because I very rarely use macro. I much prefer just having an assignable button to those back paddles, because, you know, unless you're doing something specific in a game where you need certain button presses that you just want to assign to the back paddle and then assign turbo to, so it's just repeating it. Yeah, okay, you can do that with the Wizard. You can't do that with this, but the way I play, I just want that back paddle to function as an actual button, and this does that. Now, both of them have rumble, and you can assign the rumble and change the rumble. Now, straight away, I want to say the rumble on this one is a lot weaker, but the left rumble on the left side is stronger than the right. It's not even, whereas this one is quite even, but it's really noisy. If you want to see the rumble, go and watch my dedicated videos on each of these controllers, or check out my shorts. Now let's put them on the Switch. Okay, so this is the DOYOKY, and they're on. It feels freaking great. Like, I really like it, and it's a much more lighter Joy-Con set than the Wizards. So the whole thing is lighter, and I really like the sort of thinness of the DOYOKY, even though, you know, it is lightweight, makes it feel a little bit cheap. When you're actually using it, you don't realize that at all. Like, this feels great, but check this out. Top down, it's flush with the Switch, and that makes me very, very happy. It is absolutely flush. They've really tried their hardest there to get it flush, and it is basically flush, which you can see here, right? There's no big wedge hanging out the back, and it just feels good in the hands. Like, it just feels nice, right? So let's do it with the Wizards. So this is the Wizard, and massively feels bigger. Like, it just feels bigger already. And to be fair, it's because they are bigger. Like, look at that on there. You can see that the Wizard is so much more hefty. Like, you know, it's probably hard to see on camera, but it is a much bigger controller, the Wizards, and the whole thing just feels fat, you know, like it's just chonky. There's nothing wrong with it. I really like the Wizards, especially with the Hall effect sensing joysticks, but it just feels big and a bit more clunky. And are you ready for it? Boom! Look at that. Look at the wedge. Look at the size of that wedge. There is no flushness there whatsoever. Now, the benefit is when it's laying down, at least that big wedge is keeping it off of the table, right? But I really don't know if I like that. Well, I just don't. No, I don't like the wedge. It's just not very nice. But there's nothing wrong with these, you know, like they are good. But I just feel like these ones just feel a little bit better. And of course, they both have gyro as well, so you can assign gyro. I'm not going to do that with this game because this game is just an aiming thing and it gets a bit confusing. All right, so what are the prices of both of these? Well, the NYXI Wizard, you're looking at about £65 here in the UK or $70, whereas the DOYOKY ones here, you're looking at about $65 and £53. So there's only a few dollars in it, like $5, maybe £3 difference here in the UK. And to be honest, for me personally, just using both, I would probably go for the DOYOKY. Like, I really didn't think I was going to get to that conclusion. I really did not. I thought I would like the NYXI better, but I actually prefer the DOYOKYs. Even though, yes, they feel lighter, a little bit more cheap. The face buttons are nicer. I prefer the changeable joysticks because it's much easier. I don't have the faff of those gates. Like, I don't care. Like, the octagonal gates are absolutely fine for me. The joysticks, okay, are not Hall effect. That is the biggest, like, con. And there is a very minor amount of Deadzone. See my video, you know, about that on these controllers directly if you want to see more about that. But it's so negligible. I'm fine with it. If you're a hardcore pro player, get these for the Hall effect sticks. But for me, I'm fine with the ALPS sticks. They are great, but these just feel more like an actual GameCube controller. And even the fact that you've got this charging thing here, like, that just wins for me. It just hands down wins. So for me, the winner is the DOYOKY. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And whilst you're here, go and check out both of my videos on these. So you can see the NYXI Wizard up here, or you can see the DOYOKY video down here. And probably over my face, go check out our podcast channel where me and AJ talk about all things gaming, and you can see a podcast video there or the dedicated control video. Just do stuff. Just watch it all and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.